We're using some amazing technology to record this program right now. Practically everybody's walking around with a computer in their pocket, and a person who's blind or visually impaired wants to be able to use that computer too.
Just the joy of finding people who are blind or really need help and giving them the equipment that just turns their world around. There's information online to where to mail a contribution if you wish. You will be helping people. We're very proud of iLink Minnesota. Last year, out of all the contributions raised, 92 cents of every dollar went to adaptive technology for blind people. To look it up on a website, you got to have that dash in there, EYE-LINK.org. We've got a phone number out, and that is 763-561-6967. And that's all done by volunteers. That's why we're so efficient and effective, Jeff. It's all volunteer and no salaries.
We got a lot there, don't we?
I think so.
Welcome to Blind Abilities. I'm Jeff Thompson. When we're blind and visually impaired, we think about State Services for the Blind as a provider of services and equipment to help us maintain a lifestyle and to gain employment, education, and the tools we need to begin and maintain a productive life, a contributor to society. But what happens when you're a senior and you go to State Services for the Blind and find out that certain equipment does not fall under the criteria that they are able to provide for you? That's where iLink comes in. iLink, that's EYE-LINK, is a philanthropic foundation that is set up to help assist seniors gain the needed equipment to help them maintain and enhance the life that they want to live.
My name is Ed Letcher. I'm the director of the Senior Services Unit at State Services for the Blind. State Services for the Blind is the state agency that serves people who are blind and visually impaired. And within that, we have basically three general areas. Our communication center, which is kind of part of what we're doing here. Then we've got our vocational rehab department, which is called Workforce Development Unit, and then the Senior Services Unit, which I'm the director of.
Thanks for coming on, Ed. Can you explain a little bit about the relationship that the senior division here at State Services has with iLink? I read a letter and it described how seniors are able to get equipment that you can't provide, but iLink is able to for seniors.
Yeah, so what we're doing in that letter is we're outreaching. We're realizing that there are people who could benefit from the services who aren't taking advantage of the services. In fact, they're a philanthropic organization, so they take donations and then they're able to purchase technology for people who need it to access technology. So it's particular to, note takers and braille displays and closed circuit televisions and software and those kinds of things that people need. We at State Services for the Blind can purchase some of those things, but many of the pieces of assistive technology are quite expensive, and we have limits in terms of what we're able to purchase. So our relationship with iLink works exactly like that.
So after talking to Ed Letcher at State Services from the Senior Division and finding the limitations did not always provide seniors with the equipment that they needed, I headed across the river to meet up with Jim Justison, the founder of iLink.
Hi, Jeff. Good to have you here. I'm looking forward to sharing the iLink story with everybody. It's quite a fascinating one. It's an interesting one, and it's one that's really been helpful to a lot of blind people or people struggling with vision loss.
Great, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here. And can you start it out by just telling what is iLink and how do you spell iLink?
EYE-LINK. So to look it up on a website, you got to have that dash in there, EYE-LINK.org. iLink was formed in 2000, and it was really kind of a lot of help from my wife, Jackie, encouraging me to do something like that, to get a foundation that would help people struggling with sight loss in all its various forms. So in 2000, we put together a team of people. We went under a donor-advised fund and began thinking and trying to work up through the idea of providing adaptive technology, assistive technology. And that's far beyond canes, as you know, and far beyond recorders. That's machines that will literally read, connect you back to information, really optical scanners. It does just, the machinery today and the adaptive technology today does just about everything. So in 2000, we formed iLink with the idea that its mission is very, very simple: to provide that type of adaptive technology to people dealing with blindness or dealing with extremely low vision or severe visual impairments. That's how it all began. We worked in part for a long time with the STAR Foundation, the STAR program, a woman by the name of Carol Fury. We finally put a board together, and by 2002, we granted our first bit of equipment. It was a CCTV. It was an old-fashioned Merlin, so we had a camera connected to a monitor, and we gave it to a senior out in Richfield, Minnesota, and that turned out to be quite a thing for us. Putting a board together was interesting. You're finding a lot of people who are interested in helping other people, and then just the joy of finding people who are blind or really need help and giving them the equipment that just turns their world around. Just, as you know, providing access, again, to all forms of information is quite a thing. And the technology is moving very, very quickly today. So iLink now is the iLink Foundation. We have an iLink Minnesota and an iLink North Dakota, and soon to be an iLink Wisconsin. So we're looking for people in the Wisconsin area, live in Wisconsin, who have the idea that helping other people is really work worth doing, and helping people struggling with the onset of blindness or dimming eyes is certainly work worth doing.
Well, that's great. 17 years, and now you're in North Dakota and building in Wisconsin. So what is your relationship with State Services for the Blind, Jim?
That's a great question. We have had a super, super relationship with them. Kind of call it public-private, but it is very, very workable, and it came about in a large part because of a person by the name of Ed Letcher. He and I became friends several years ago and just thought about how we attack the problem of blind people and their needs. What is really interesting and what we've found out is that when you start losing your sight, it's a very, very difficult thing. One, because you don't know where to go and where to turn. Secondly, your family doesn't know where to go or where to turn. And thirdly, there's very little information about it, about how do you deal with it, where do I go, how do I find help or assistance. We've been working on that in the iLink Foundation, but so has SSB. We've been putting out letters, we've been doing public service announcements, and it's been in kind of a formative stage, but we have contacted over 1,500 businesses as State Services for the Blind and the iLink Foundation to inform them of our services and what we do. iLink Foundation does a lot of advocacy, so we've got a phone number out, and that is 763-561-6967. Now I'll repeat that again. For people just trying to figure out where to go and what to do, we do a lot of advocacy. We'll help you get where you need to be. Where you need to be is with State Services for the Blind. So we drive people in that direction, help them get accommodated with State Services for the Blind. We'll usually help them get a counselor and then get them on the way to begin to learn how to deal with blindness or very, very low vision. So there's technical training, but there's also mobility training and a lot of things that go on. That happens at and through State Services for the Blind. And it really varies. I've worked with 2 cases in northern Minnesota where one person wants to be very, very productive. She's back on board. She's going to take mobility training and is starting to learn more about how assistive technology can help her. And that, in this case, included a Ruby magnifier. She uses that to read, but she uses it to put on her nail polish and her lipstick. So the other guy is a friend of mine, and he just recently went blind because of unattended detached retina. And after several surgeries and a long delay, some more issues occurred with his eye, his right eye, and. But he's pretty content. He's not interested in mobility, but he's on Radio Talking Book and doing some recorders and listening to some books like that. So it just depends on the person and where they're at. But it takes a while for people to adjust to it, but we're here, iLink is here to help. We advocate there. Then, like I was saying, we get them to, fortunately, Ed Lecker and SSB, and they just do a marvelous job handling people. So if you're struggling, it could be a brother, mother. It's just, how it varies. Blindness is totally indiscriminate. It affects absolutely everybody in every walk of life and every age level and everything else. So that's important. Once they get to SSB, they may need some additional equipment, some assistive technology. The state does not always provide that. So that's where the iLink Foundation comes in. When we refer a person to SSB, we kind of stay in touch with them. They will eventually come back to us because of SSB and ask for a particular piece of adaptive technology. It could be a simple old-fashioned Perkins Brailler, but it also could be a Da Vinci with an optical scanner on it, which will not only boost font and type size for you, but if you get to the point where you have to read a 21-inch, 27-inch monitor one letter at a time, it will optically scan, so it will literally read the document you're trying to look at back to you. So it's just incredible. SSB in the iLink Foundation, our applications are online at ilink.org or mn.ilink.org, and we have you process through SSB. We ask you as an applicant, have you been denied equipment from SSB? Now that's part of the process. You have to have a denial letter attached to your application, your grant application to the iLink Foundation. You can ask for everything or anything, but you have to be denied by SSB. Our application is also online at ilink.org or mn.ilink.org, and you can fill it out online, or you can also make a copy of it, sign it, send it in, and you do need, however, the SSB denial letter attached to that application. So SSB does for us is just incredible. They screen people, they help them. If they don't provide equipment, they direct them to come to iLink for an application. And of course, they are all signing and stapling the denial letter from SSB to the grant application. So again, the grant application is available by phone, 763-561-6967. You can get it online at ilink.org, and we link to all the iLinks. We link to Blind Inc., SSB, VLR, ACB, MCIL. We have all kinds of linkage. We link to iLink Minnesota and North Dakota, and like I say, soon to be iLink Wisconsin. So it's a fun time. The board meets quarterly. We got a great group of people working on the board, and it's just a joy for them. So far this year, we have granted 26 grants. So 26 families, 26 people are going to get reconnected with all forms of information one way or other, however they choose. So that's just been a real joy. So the board meets quarterly, and in some cases, let's say we pick up a used CCTV. Well, we've got it on hand, and all of a sudden, mid-quarter, an application comes in. We'll sometimes fill those, and the board will get on email and say, okay, we've got a free CCTV, and Jeff Thompson needs one, so let's vote, and they vote, and bang, we send it out. So quarterly board meetings, quarterly grant applications, and there's some cases where we will grant something in between quarters. Oh, it's a lot of fun, and like I say, we're just finding it's really work worth doing. We try to help as many people as we can. We will advocate, but we'll also give you equipment you need.
Well, that's really fantastic, Jim. Now, you mentioned that your wife prompted you to start this, but what in your mind started the conversation? What planted the seed to start iLink?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have RP and went total about 20 years ago. As part of that, in late 1990s, I was at VLR, Vision Loss Resources, and in rehab. So I was doing tech training, mobility training, everything else. I'd been thinking about some way to help people struggling with dimming sight, and I had it in my brain for a while. I talked to my great wife and partner, Jackie Justison, in class with a lot of kids from 18 to age 50. And we're going through rehab, mobility training, typing, learning keyboarding, everything, working with JAWS and an older version of Windows at that point. And everything worked out really well. I met some tremendous people. There was a tremendous group of instructors down there. And the director, Kelly McCurry of Vision Loss Resources, happens to be on the iLink board of directors. So anyway, I just began thinking more and more. I had the ability to buy whatever I needed, and that usually turns out to be a computer with JAWS. And you can get a Dell, they get all kinds of computers, a Windows system, now an Apple system. It doesn't make any difference. But putting voice to that just makes a big, big difference in your life. And now, then you could go out on the net. There's a lot of things you can surf and do. So I just thought, I was very fortunate, but I had a lot of people around me that were graduating with me in a 3 to 6 month period of time that had no options and had no equipment available. And when they went to SSB would pay for their training and help them out. You could use equipment at Blind Inc. or Vision Loss Resources during the day and sometimes on weekends. But if you don't have it yourself, there's almost no way to get it. We're still looking at blind unemployment at 70%, and SSDI is not enough to, keep you going, or more or less even getting some housing and some food. So I just thought maybe providing equipment would be a good idea. Screening the people for that became a real problem, and that's what got us to SSB. So iLink does no screening. We take you to SSB. If you are blind and then need some equipment, of course, and ask them for it, they will turn you down, and we become the court of last resort. So by 2000, I got out of Vision Loss Resources. I graduated, Jeff, in about 1995, 96, and we formed the iLink Foundation in 2000, and in 2002, we made our first grant. It took us that long to get organized, get a board, get all the legalities run out, and then trying to fundraise is really an issue. iLink accepts no government support whatsoever. So all we do is ask for contributions from individuals like you, and we go out and try to get grants from organizations and businesses and other foundations whose giving parameters kind of fit what iLink does. So that's true in each state. So each state has a board, they're independent. They have a president, a treasurer, a secretary, applications directors who monitor the applications coming in. The application director presents it to the board on a quarterly meeting. The board votes, and that's how it all happens. So, like I say, so far this year in Minnesota alone, we've made 26 grants of equipment, and one was a Perkins Brailler, by the way. So they go from $3,000 down to about $300. So. But that's how we got on board. My wife just kept encouraging me, and then helped. We jointly kind of financed the initial setup of iLink, and then it's just gone from there. So donations are readily accepted. You can do that online, and also there's information online to where to mail a contribution if you wish. You will be helping people. We're very proud of iLink Minnesota. Last year, out of all the contributions raised, 92 cents of every dollar went to adaptive technology for blind people. We're all volunteer, we have no salaries and no expenses other than mailings and paperwork, so to speak. So it's really, we're very, very proud of how effective and how efficient we are, and that's been recognized by the Minnesota Charities Review Council. So you spend $1 with us, it's not going to be like Cars for Kids or Wounded Warriors or anything else where you're getting 50 cents or less. In fact, Cars for Kids had, out of $3 million donated in Minnesota got back 11,000, so that's not even 1%. So we're very proud of the fact that roughly 92 cents of every dollar helps somebody struggling with blindness.
92 cents on the dollar. That's pretty good, Jim. That's something to be proud of. So if someone does have some equipment at home, such as a Perkins Braille or some other device, CCTV, what is the process or how do they go about getting the piece of equipment into the hands of iLink?
We will generally pick that up and revitalize it and reuse it. We do that with blinded veterans. The VA in Minnesota provides blinded veterans anything they really want or need and can use, and also provide the training. Nice. What they don't do is pick up that equipment. They won't rehab it. They won't upgrade it. And if it's broken, they won't fix it. So we've got an arrangement with them where we will pick up this equipment. If the vet gets a new piece of gear, we'll pick up the old. So we've got on our website, yes, we will pick up used equipment and rehab it. If we can't use it, we junk it. If we can, of course, we'll provide it to somebody else. And that is really, really helpful to us. We can only raise so much money. We're spending all of it on equipment, so we need money. But when we get a used piece of gear, what's nice is we can make that grant real quickly, and there's no cost to the iLink Foundation other than pickup and delivery. And that's all done by volunteers. That's why we're so efficient and effective, Jeff. It's all volunteer and no salaries. So people that volunteer for us, it's got to be really fun and work worth doing for them or they wouldn't do it. So we're very proud of our board and the people that help us.
Well, Jim, thank you very much for all that you do with iLink and, to take an idea and bring it to fruition to where it is today, with the help of your wife and all the volunteers and all the passion. I hear the passion when you're talking about this, that you, your board, the volunteers, all the way down. You guys are doing a great job, and thank you very much for sharing this. And Jim, great job.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
It was really nice to meet Jim and chit-chat with him. He's someone that you could sit down for hours and talk with and always have an interesting conversation going on. After finding that information about iLink, I went back to Ed Letcher back at State Services for the Blind to find out more about the senior unit at State Services for the Blind. So, Ed, you deny someone, you staple a denial sheet to the application, they bring it over to Jim at iLink, and Jim gets them some equipment. Now they need training. So what happens then?
It works very symbiotically, actually. They're a very generous organization, and they really have the interest of making sure that people who have become blind or visually impaired or are blind or visually impaired have access to these relatively expensive pieces of equipment. Now, being a philanthropic organization, they don't have the means to then have somebody go and teach them how to use it. If you've never used, for instance, like a Braille note taker before, maybe even if you have pretty good Braille skills, there's some learning that needs to go on in order to be able to use that essentially computer well, to be able to use it productively and use it for what you need to do. So we have training vendors that we can hire to teach those individuals, or we have particular staff people that can work with them to be able to make sure that they learn how to use them.
So instead of buying the equipment, which you're not able to do, you can provide instruction.
Yeah, instruction, and beyond the equipment that one needs in terms of technology, there are generally other types of lower tech kinds of aids and devices that can be very useful for people. And we actually at State Services for the Blind do provide those things. So that, if a referral comes to iLink or a referral comes to us, depending on what the person needs, we can work together really seamlessly to, make sure that the person gets what they need. So say a person, calls iLink and Jim Justison, their director, says, you need to register with State Services for the Blind. Maybe that person only wants a piece of technology, but once they've met with us, they're probably going to realize that there are other things that we do offer, some other kinds of training, some other kinds of devices, some other kinds of classes and things that may benefit them really greatly. So they end up, getting into our system and getting more services generally.
And that might be the new horizons for the seniors.
Well, the main thing that's sort of driving a lot of the attention on seniors right now is the fact that there's a giant population of people turning into seniors right now. That baby boom generation is there. The first sort of wave of the baby boomers are now in their 70s. Unfortunately, when it comes to vision loss, the largest group of people that acquire vision loss later in life are folks who are up in their 70s or older. There's a condition called macular degeneration that is extremely. It happens a lot for people. It's probably by far and away the largest cause of vision loss in the United States, at least, and I think probably for Western European countries as well. It's a condition that starts to take a person's central vision and can go all the way to legal blindness. And so with an incidence of something like that increasing with age and this giant population of people turning into seniors, you can see kind of what that looks like. So where maybe 10 years ago there were, say, just for the sake of conversation, 20,000 people that would be eligible for a program like ours, multiply that by it's double by the year 2020. We're going to have a huge group of seniors.
The silver tsunami, I've heard.
Tsunami, yeah. Yeah, that was our former director. We had a former director, Richard Strong, and he was very fond of using that phrase. But it's an apt phrase, in that it's a big chunk of people who are real different than the generation before them. They were, the greatest generation, so to speak, was a smaller generation, and really the amounts of things that you could do with that population, they were averse to technology and things like that. This baby boom generation, they're going to leave the workforce having used all kinds of technology in their work lives, and I think are going to have certain expectations about what technology can do for them if they are in a position where they're losing their vision. And I think they're right. There's some amazing technology, and we're using some amazing technology to record this program right now. And there's platforms on tablets and smartphones, and practically everybody's walking around with a computer in their pocket, and a person who's blind or visually impaired wants to be able to use that computer too. So, there's some learning that needs to take place. So,
and with this partnership with iLink, they can possibly acquire a computer and possibly get instruction from State Services for the Blind.
That's absolutely right. In fact, computers are a very common request. If you think about it, if you're a retired person, you want to keep up on all that correspondence. You want to go to Facebook, social media, other types of things, and all those things are accessible to a person who's blind and visually impaired. But there's a little learning that has to happen. It's not the mouse that everybody's accustomed to. You don't see the screen, so you can't drag your mouse over and click on the icon and away you go. There's new ways that you have to learn how to do that.
And how can someone get a hold of State Services if they're interested in checking out the services?
I think the best way is just to get on the website and go to the State Services for the Blind pages. It's www.mnssb.org. When you get to those pages, it has a mapping function where you can pick the office that's nearest you. So in the Twin Cities, obviously, our St. Paul office is the place to call, and we'll get them connected with the person who serves their area. And that's the same in Greater Minnesota. If they call that office, they'll go right to the State Services for the Blind employee that works in that office, and then they can talk to the individual, the counselor who serves that area, and schedule a time, and that counselor will come out and meet with the individual and assess their needs, and they'll go from there. Oftentimes that service does involve working with them to apply iLink's services.
And that's all they have to do.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Then, often the iLink folks consider their requests, I believe, on a rolling basis. They do them at board meetings, so their board of directors considers the requests. They're not processing them every single day. They meet every so often, and they discuss those applications at that time. But it doesn't take a real long time.
Well, great. Well, Ed, thanks for coming on Blind Abilities and talking about iLink and State Services for the Blind.
Excellent. Thanks for having me. Great.
When we share
what we see
through each other's eyes, we can then begin to bridge the gap between
the limited expectations and the realities of blind abilities.
The realities of blind abilities.
For more podcasts with a blindness perspective, check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com, on Twitter at blindabilities. Download our app from the App Store, Blind Abilities, that's 2 words, or send us an email at info@blindabilities.com. Thanks for listening.